Got you. Yes! Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
An all-time high. Razor leaves the courtroom, and more discoveries are made in Judge Lauren's chambers.
Oh, my God. Oh, how disrespectful can you be? I can another woman, someone else's house. You don't understand you can do me like this because right now I still love you. Even you treat me like dirt right now. I still love you. I still got love for you. But that's your baby, and you gonna take care of him.
He's admitted he's been carrying on a sexual relationship with your daughter. At the same time, he was in a sexual relationship with you.
Yes.
Did they deny it at first? But your intuition told you something was going on.
And I would get up to go to the bathroom. She would get up out of the chair across the room to sit by him.
Ms. Bogardus has to be a superwoman because how can she be fine with her boyfriend impregnating her daughter? Ms. Holthouse and Mr. Shinwald really did that woman dirty. Ridiculous is nothing next to what Ms. Bogardus' daughter and her nasty boyfriend did.
Ms. Holthouse, you are here to prove paternity of your 3-month-old son, Zayden.
Yes, Your Honor.
Shockingly, you confess it's either a man you shared a sexual relationship with who wants nothing to do with your child, or the defendant who happens to be your mother's boyfriend.
Y'all hear how terrible it sounds? Oh yeah, Ms. Bogardus has to live with that kind of truth. Talking about truth, there's still a lot of that to uncover from the case of Ms. Holthouse versus Shinwald and Bogardus.
So, Mr. Chanel, how did you end up in a sexual relationship with your girlfriend's daughter?
It started out as a text message, Your Honor. I received wasn't supposed to come to me, and a word was misspelled. It was a word. A few days later, she had on tight clothing, no little skirt, breast out, and next thing you know, one thing led to another. We started flirting with each other back and forth.
Mr. Shinwald is saying he fell for his girlfriend's daughter because of a misspelt word and short skirt. Don't forget, Ms. Holthouse is meant to be like a daughter to Mr. Shinwald too, but it seems that thought flew out of Mr. Shinwald's head a long time as he saw her boobies out. Shameful.
This all started with a word you misspelled in a text.
Yes, Your Honor.
You sent the message. Was it meant for him or meant for someone else?
It was meant for him, but my mom was sitting right beside me when I texted him this.
About having a sexual relationship with your mother's boyfriend.
I had not really thought about it until I got a phone call from him.
Mr. Shinwald is the adult here, and he was even the person pushing the sexual agenda. Ms. Bogardus really has the patience of a mother because that man's punishment is supposed to be on another level.
Response was?
I didn't mean anything about it at that moment.
And then he said, no, I'm serious. I'm trying to figure out how this conversation got from there to the park. What did you say to her, Mr. Chanel?
Just asked her if she wanted to go out and have a good time with me.
Sure.
Oh yeah. What's funny to Ms. Holthouse? There's really nothing to smile about in this sad situation. Ms. Holthouse was definitely eyeing her mother's boyfriend. That's just unfair to Ms. Bogardus. She gave that man a roof over his head, and that's the best he could do to assist her.
She didn't have any idea until Mr. Chenault and her got locked up and he got out while he was in jail.
How did she find out?
She had kind of manipulated both of us, saying that I told her about what we did and I never said anything, and she said that he told her about what we did and he never said anything.
And who confessed?
Just like the judge mentioned, that's nasty work for real. Why would anyone be interested in moving from a mother to her daughter at the same time? Everyone wants to know what was going through Mr. Shinwald's head that made him commit such atrocious behavior. It definitely isn't normal.
Ever almost catch you?
Yes, and when she did,
What happened?
she caught me standing in front of her, my pants unzipped. She was really furious and upset, and we basically got into huge arguments and fights.
And so when you found out you were pregnant, Ms. Holthouse, did your mother know anything about this?
Some people would have landed in jail did murder if they were Ms. Bogardus. Y'all can see Mr. Shinwald doesn't look remorseful. He's just being polite because he got caught. Even Judge Lake wouldn't have that type of patience. It's just all shades of wrong.
Well, at the moment I did not know, but as my mom was pregnant with my sister, my sister is Mr. Chenault's daughter.
How old is her daughter?
She's about to turn 11 months.
How old is your child?
He is 3 months.
3 months. When you find out you're pregnant, whose child do you think it is?
Mr. Shinwald just keeps worsening the situation, impregnating both his girlfriend, that is the mother of Ms. Holthouse, that also may have possibly birthed a child for him. Ms. Bogardus is never getting over this type of betrayal from both her daughter and boyfriend.
Ma'am, we are discussing a very difficult situation. Mr. Chenault has been honest with this court. He's admitted he's been carrying on a sexual relationship with your daughter. At the same time, he was in a sexual relationship with you.
Yes.
Did they deny it at first?
Yes.
But your intuition told you something was going on.
She did judge Lake, and that's the reason they are all in your court, ma'am. These two played Ms. Bogardus like a piano. Now we just have to hear those 5 or 4 words from the judge to finalize what Ms. Bogardus's fate will be like.
Mr. Chenault, it has been determined by this court. You are not his father.
3. Fathers to one child is wild. But the part that will blow your mind is who exactly took the case to paternity court. Is it the first, second, or the third option of being the baby daddy? That's what we are about to find out alongside who exactly the father is.
And you say you grew up believing one man was your father, yet had another man listed on your birth certificate. Then, after you turned 30 years old, a third man, the defendant, suddenly contacted you on Facebook claiming he was your father.
Yes, Your Honor.
The mother of Ms. Nelson has some questions to answer concerning how she was seeing 3 men at the same time. Mr. Sterling looks like he's not about to let his 30-year-old dear daughter not know he's the real daddy. It's about to get real tense in that court.
You're here with your daughter and say it was she who helped you find Miss Nelson.
Yes, ma'am.
You claim today you will reveal why another man's name is on Ms. Nelson's birth certificate and prove to her you are indeed her father.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Sterling wants his daughter, and now Judge Lake has to do justice to that, but not until we hear the story from both sides or the 4 parties involved. There's the mother, or Ms. Nelson, and the supposed 3 daddies. Whew!
How did you first hear about Mr. Sterling's claim?
Well, Your Honor, I grew up my whole life knowing a different man was my dad. It was a man that was in prison. My mother took me to visit him weekend after weekend, week after week, and this is the man I grew up knowing.
Ms. Nelson's mother knew a man in and out of prison wasn't a good fit for her daughter's daddy, but she allowed him to knock her up? Okay, that's interesting. Mr. Sterling will have to be really patient at this point to figure out if Ms. Nelson would turn out to be his biological daughter.
Father's name listed, Vincent Preston Nelson. And that's not the name of the gentleman you visited in prison.
No, Your Honor.
So this had to be confusing.
Yes, Your Honor. I was hurt because I never knew who he was. I just knew that this man was my dad, and I felt like my mom should have told me that this man was my father, even though he was in and out of prison.
Ms. Nelson claimed her birth certificate father and the supposed biological father were different according to her mother's explanation, and that hurt her deeply. But here's the kicker. Ms. Nelson was hurt, but there's nothing she could do about it. Her mother made the messy bed, but Ms. Nelson has to lie in it.
I got a message from a man named Christopher Lancaster saying that I'm your dad. He was sorry for not being in my life, and he now wants to be in my life. And he left 2 numbers on there. I contacted both those numbers. Both the numbers were disconnected because it was...
So there's also a Christopher Lancaster in the mix. Mr. Lancaster said he's the father on Facebook, like he was ready to take on the responsibility, but he left 2 numbers that weren't reachable. That man is ready to be a father to Ms. Nelson just yet.
Well, I know you don't know who I am, but I'm your father. Thinking when you get this message.
Your Honor, honestly, I didn't even know what to think because it was like I was...
It's like it's just coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It was outrageous to me that I had got this message.
It's outrageous for real. Different men springing up as one's father will definitely have a negative psychological effect on anyone. There's a birth certificate father, a prison father, and even an unknown father that Ms. Nelson has to deal with.
Relationship with her mother.
We was young, Your Honor. We was young. We met in high school.
Okay.
17, 18 years old. We was young. You're young, you fall in love with each other. So we had the relationship, had sex.
When you found out she was pregnant, did you know you were the father?
Yes, ma'am. I was there at the hospital.
Ow, that sounds like a sweet love story. Young lovebirds dealing with life in their different ways. If only Nunger Sterling's love for Ms. Nelson's mother blossomed into a happy family. But it's never too late, right? Let's see how that goes.
I used to tie a note because we stayed on the 5th floor. It's the project, so we stayed on the 5th floor. I used to hand a note down on a string and then give it to her. She'd tie her note up and I pulled the note out. I was on punishment.
Oh my God. All right, you're redeemed.
Mr. Sterling must have really fantasized that he was going to have his happily ever after with Ms. Nelson's mother. It seems like he's still in love even after decades of leaving high school. Mr. Sterling needs Ms. Nelson to be his daughter so badly so he could redeem his high school love fruit.
Mr. Sterling, you are her father.
Told you. You're in the Sterling clan now. Thank you, Carla.
Mr. Green is not about to accept someone else's child as his when he knew Ms. Bailey was sleeping with multiple men, including himself during the time of her conception. Ms. Bailey wants to prove to Mr. Green and everyone that Mr. Green is indeed the father of the baby in question.
You state you've brought your ex-husband, Mr. Green, to court to prove he is the biological father of your 9-month-old son, Lawrence.
Yes, Your Honor.
Though you freely admit to sleeping with multiple men during the time of conception, you say you believe the defendant is your child's father because you kept an ovulation calendar.
Okay, but there has to be more to the story, so let's dig for that. Mr. Green can't just conclude he's nothing the father of the baby because there were other guys. The baby could still be his, as he might have been the lucky shooter who scored. Just as the judge wants to know what's going on with this case, so does the audience feel too.
So certain this is not your child.
Well, we went on a 4-month drought, and the first time I had seen her in 4 months, she already had a little pudge, a little pouch, like she already looked pregnant.
Your Honor, I always had a stomach. Obviously, I still have a stomach, and I'm not pregnant now.
Ms. Bailey also thinks Mr. Green is indeed the father of her baby, so he shouldn't run away from his responsibilities. So these two grown-ups have some explanations to do. They were the ones who knew when they were hitting on each other and selling each other hopes and dreams of having a great family. So let's go deeper to know how this plays out.
Very fast. Shouldn't have been married.
6 months.
You were married for 6 months.
No, we wasn't, Your Honor. We was together about 7 months. We dated for 6 months. We got married. We were together
dated
for
for
3
6
months, and she went missing for a whole year. I tried to get a divorce.
When did I go missing? I have never went missing. We stayed in contact to this day.
Divorce? Oops, that's some serious work right there. Ms. Bailey is telling the court she and Mr. Green are still having sexual relationship, and even if he claims he's with another woman, she could still have him if she wanted to. First of all, the fact that they are still having a sexual relationship puts Mr. Green at a disadvantage, but let's continue digging.
If I found out I was pregnant, would he believe that it was his child? And he told me yes.
Your Honor, she disappeared. How could she talk to somebody when she wasn't around? She was gone for 5 months.
Your Honor, if I told him I was pregnant, I
until she
still
was
went
5.5 months
with
pregnant.
him in March.
No, I
After
did
I
not
told him I was
see
pregnant,
her anymore.
and then I went with him again when I was 3 months pregnant.
Mr. Green believed Ms. Bailey's baby was his baby at the time of conception, but his thought changed after the baby came to life. Was Mr. Green just trying to escape baby dash duties and responsibilities? For him to have accepted at first, he definitely would have thought and felt the baby was his own. So why change the narrative?
Bailey, respectfully, you slept with him and 2 other men, so do you blame him for not being sure? Or
No, Your Honor, I don't
did you
blame him.
know
I
at
don't
that
blame
time, Mr. Green, that she had slept with 2 other men as well?
Yes, I did, Your Honor. I did. She tells me stuff that think is gonna make me mad. I just let it go over my head, get what I want, and move on to the next.
We shouldn't blame Mr. Green so much since Ms. Bailey also agreed that she wasn't faithful. Mr. Green has the right to have his doubts that he isn't the baby daddy of the innocent child. These folks seem to like to complicate this baby's future.
There's no way that child should come out that light with red hair.
Why?
There's no way.
Do you know your whole family history? Do you
Your
know
Honor,
if any red
her
hairs are in my
red
family?
because she bought it. His hair is red because somebody else gave it to him.
2 different color reds, 2 different colors.
So this is your evidence that pertains to the fact you don't believe that you or her together could produce a child.
Damn, that room is witnessing more evidence than a corruption court case. Mr. Green doesn't agree that a red-headed baby belongs to him. The only way Ms. Bailey was able to birth a red-headed baby is because she had slept with a red-headed man. Mr. Green said there's no history of a red-headed person in his entire family tree, so Ms. Bailey can't force the baby on him.
Like he just don't care about him. But Your Honor, I do have a calendar that I have.
I would like to see that.
Of my fertility that tells you the day that me and him slept together and the other 2.
So this is your iPad that has your app in red ovulated.
Yes.
So now going forward.
So Ms. Bailey depended on that app to know who exactly her baby daddy is. But as Mr. Green said, it's too crowded, and his sperm could have done nothing in the cause of fertilizing one of Ms. Bailey's eggs. It's wild enough that this is happening, but Mr. Green never thought of calling it quits in terms of their sexual relationship, hence the problem.
Okay, he broke up with her to be with me, and then when Thanksgiving came along, he told me he was staying with his sister. So he asked me to spend a weekend with him, which I did, and I walked in, and he took me into another woman's house, not his sister's house, another woman's house. Oh, I shouldn't have stopped. I should have stopped messing with him then, because how disrespectful can you be? I got another woman, someone else's house.
So here it comes, Mr. Green's little dirty secret out in the open too. But Ms. Bailey knew she should have stopped. That relationship has no sustenance whatsoever, but it is what it is, right? Mr. Green and Ms. Bailey really aren't the best match for each other, but we need to hear that result though.
Mr. Green, you are Lawrence's father. In the infamous words of Mr. Green, it is what it is.
Ms. McKinney is in open court with her supposed baby father, who is denying paternity of a beautiful girl, Amira. What's the reason Mr. Brown thinks Amira belongs to another man? You should witness the cat being let out of the bag yourself.
Prove to your husband that he fathered your 11-month-old daughter, Amira. You testify that his paternity denial tearing you apart. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Brown, you say there is no way you are Amira's biological father.
That's some jaw-dropping information. A sex tape with another is the part where many men will draw the line and not care about the woman and her offspring. However, Mr. Brown still wants to know if baby Amira belongs to him before he would get rid of Ms. McKinney from his life.
And that the fact that that's his daughter, and it's not about looks, it's about DNA. And I'm here today to prove and show that he is the father of Amira Brown.
And I can see that you are really hurting right now. I can see the tears. What are you feeling, Miss McKinney? What are you feeling?
I just hope that he's the father of Amira Brown.
Hope that he is.
Yes.
Ms. McKinney hopes her daughter turns out to be Mr. Brown's biological father as she breaks down in tears. You may be thinking about Ms. McKinney's thought process, since she's the one who was messing around with different men and even recorded it for whatever reason best known to her.
Do not believe you're Amira's biological father.
No, I do not, because when she was born, she did not look like me. And I waited, I gave it time to see how she would look, and more every day that I look and take pictures with Amira, she has his face, and it bothers me a lot.
So you feel Amira look like the man you saw on the sex tape with your wife?
Well. Mr. Brown wouldn't believe Amira is his biological daughter even for $1 million. Mr. Brown looks like who would argue that the DNA test is wrong if it comes back positive that he's the father, but he's the victim here. So maybe he has the right to not give Ms. McKinney a benefit of doubt.
How did you find this sex tape?
Well, one day the girls, they like snatching her phone, so they grabbed her phone. Before they came against the video, I grabbed it and it pressed play, and I seen the beginning of the video and I didn't see what I liked, so I just disclosed it. I didn't watch the whole video.
The video came up, or you went looking to see what was in her phone?
They were scrolling through her pictures, whatever, and before they could even get to it, I grabbed the phone.
Mr. Brown didn't like what he saw on the phone, and he even knew it was inappropriate for kids to watch. Could that be the reason Ms. McKinney wants Mr. Brown to be the biological father of Amira? Because he would be a responsible father to her also? It's a valid reason, but what if he's not the father?
And then I finally met him in person, and he came to my house.
So how often were you sexually active with this man?
10 times.
And now, Mr. Brown, you believe this man is the father of Amira?
10 times is more than enough for a fertile man to impregnate a woman, and this shows Mr. Brown's opinion about the other man being the father is also very valid, since the other man consistently showed up that many times he could as well be the biological father of baby Amira.
What did she tell you about her relationship status when you first met her?
Well, when I first met Miss McKinley, we was talking on the dating site, and the day I met her, Mr. Brown was present, but they wasn't together. But I seen them face to face.
Oh, the day you met her in person?
Yes.
The other man, Jonathan Fowler, doesn't even know her last name. Oh, Ms. McKinney's reason for not wanting him to be the baby daddy keeps getting clearer. Mr. Fowler doesn't seem to be interested in participating in this family drama, but he has to be in that court because baby Amira could be his daughter.
Well, me and Miss McKinney met up, and she told me she was pregnant in June of 2017, summer.
Okay.
Yes.
What did she tell you exactly?
That she's pregnant and she's ready to give birth.
So who did she say the father was?
She didn't tell me
I
nothing.
said it was complicated.
Yeah, it's indeed complicated. There are two men ready to know which one of them actually fathered the beautiful baby girl. But this complication needs to be squashed in Judge Lake's court before Mr. Brown, who can be seen boiling with anger, punch both Ms. McKinney and Mr. Fowler in the face.
You were.
Yes, I was, Your Honor.
And did you sign the birth certificate?
No, I did not.
I refused to let him sign it.
I said no because Amira didn't look like me. That's why I said.
Why did you refuse?
Because since we're married and I get public assistance, they're gonna try to hit him with child support.
You all were legally married. So why would he have to be on the hook for child support if you're legally married?
Mr. Brown knew from the jump that he isn't the biological father to that baby, and that in fact didn't make him sign the birth certificate that would be a problem to him in future. And definitely it keeps getting more complicated. The DNA result adult is the only thing that would do justice to the situation.
Mr. Fowler, you are not the father. Mr. Brown, you are not the father. McKinney, are you okay? Jerome, help her. Just take a seat, honey, and breathe.
Looking at this couple, you could tell they just weren't meant for each other. Mrs. Johnson dragged Mr. Johnson to court on the matter of him not being a good dad. Was Mr. Johnson having any of it? Hell no. Their messy situation began like this.
Mrs. Johnson, you are here today on the verge of divorce because you claim your husband of 7 years is forcing you to choose him over your 12-year-old son, Elijah. You state that you have separated multiple times over the past 5 years of your marriage. You have petitioned the court to order Mr. Johnson into family counseling.
Mr. and Mrs. Johnson have been at each other's throats for quite some time now. Having been married for up to 7 years, their marriage has crash-landed in a state of bad to worse. Trust me, it's crazy.
Nobody came to his
He wasn't
birthday
upset
party.
that I didn't come. He was upset that his cousins didn't come from Florida. It had nothing to do with me. His cousins in Florida that he doesn't see a lot.
Now,
that's where it was at.
Give me more specific stories of how you feel he treats children differently.
We went on a trip to Gatlinburg. It was just the 4 of us.
Mrs. Johnson went on and on about how Mr. Johnson wasn't threatening both of their kids. In her words, he had a favorite one. You can bet Mr. Johnson wasn't just going to let her run her mouth. He comes in like a blazing inferno, telling her she's to be blamed. It's like a war zone in the courtroom.
My son, we took like a safari ride, and he said, oh, well, me and Ethan will ride on this one, and you and Elijah can ride on that. And it just hurts my son's feelings because he never shows that extra step to where...
She doesn't enforce me as a father figure. She doesn't...
I shouldn't
I'm the father
because
that's
he's
there.
been in his life since he was 2
I have
years
been there,
old,
exactly.
and he should take
If I've
that
been there
extra
this
step
long-
on his own.
As they kept trawling each other in the courtroom like it was another WWE wrestling match, mind-blowing revelations started to pop out. Believe me, these revelations will leave your jaws dropping from your mouth.
Do you?
No, I
to your
don't.
Yes, he
biological
does.
child?
I don't
He
show
does. He will
favoritism,
go
no.
in our son's room that we have together, and he will go
He's
in there
my
and play
son.
video
I'm not
games
gonna be
with them. At one
disrespected
point in
and then deal
time,
with it.
I
Why
would
not
go to
discipline
work, and
children?
I would work nights, and they would have like movie night and all this other fun
And
stuff.
you would lay out
and then
rules
it
for him to
put-
do,
then
and
it
he
put
never
a-
does.
He put it to a stop.
After Mrs. Johnson was done throwing shades at her husband in the courtroom, it was Mr. Johnson's turn to spill the beans. And my God, did he have a lot to say about Mrs. Johnson and their 12-year-old boy. It was like an unending love series.
Do you have any idea why Elijah would feel this way?
Elijah's disrespectful to me, to
Yeah,
her,
but he's
to
disrespectful.
everyone.
It's
To
'cause
everyone.
me and
When you
Mr.
say he's
Johnson have
disrespectful,
a
disrespectful to
relationship.
First,
everyone.
give me
He
some
takes-
specifics. What do you mean?
She told him, we got a new place together. I started to remodel the entire place. She told him specifically to clean up after himself. He is 12 years old.
The rants go on, and Mr. Johnson keeps pouring out his mind like a wounded lion. Does it end there? Of course not. Mrs. Johnson, filled with rage, jumps into the ring again and starts throwing shots at her husband. She even calls him a kid. These two can't wait to rip each other apart in the courtroom.
With me, him, and my other son, and they're fighting for about 2 hours straight, non-stop. She comes home, I tell her what happened, I tell her that they're not listening, and instead of disciplining the kids, she fights with me.
He's the one acting like he's 12 too.
I'm trying to teach him to be a man. I'm trying to teach this boy to be a man.
How specifically are you trying to teach him to be a man?
If he's 12 years old, can he pick up after himself? Can he listen to his mom? Can he respect his
So
elders?
learning how to do chores.
Mrs. Johnson's dad walks up to the stage and drops bombs on bombs, countering every single word Mr. Johnson says. It was almost like her dad was her husband's biggest OPP. Man just stood there, throwing heavy blows at Mr. Johnson. It was a tug of war, and nobody wanted to be beaten.
Johnson has put it to him and all people.
Everybody.
I see Elijah being left out on a lot of things. There's
out of
no
what?
father, son, ice cream. You ask Ethan to pick up your room. It's like, would you pick up your room? What's wrong with you? Why don't?
So why aren't we here for the way you talk to Ethan?
You know, talk to him like a human being.
Knowing Mr. Johnson, you could bet he was ready for his comeback. As soon as Mrs. Johnson's dad was done talking, boom! He came with his comebacks that hit like bullets shot by a firing squad.
Wait. Doesn't that go
You're
for
his
both?
grandfather.
Doesn't
Yes.
that go for both kids, though? Wouldn't that go for both children, not just Elijah? Like what Ethan, my son, he does the same thing. He babies Elijah. Oh, it'll be
shouldn't
okay.
yell at Ethan
oh, it'll
either
be
like
okay.
that.
You yell at him. Your daughter will admit
So
it.
now you're saying that Mr. Amolch yells at...
He's way more aggressive with Ethan than he is with Elijah.
The moment of truth was finally here, but the air was thick with uncertainty as to whether their marriage was going to be saved or shattered for good. Time to see what the future holds for them. I hope you guys are ready.
As for the anger management request, you countersued and petitioned this court to order that Ms. Johnson go to anger management. I realized that there was a petition for divorce. We've seen. I'm going to take a risk and just ask, now that we've consented to the anger management and the parenting courses, is it safe to say that we're going to work on this marriage?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful. So we won't be needing this, right?
Right.
Mr. Powell doubts the paternity of his son because his ex-wife cheated on him 3 months after their marriage. His wife, Ms. Burns, who's here with her boyfriend, admits to cheating but wishes the child is his.
You claim your wife, Ms. Burns, cheated on you with the man standing next to her.
Yes, Your Honor.
After only 3 months of marriage.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, then she left you to live with him, and now you say the paternity of your child is in question.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, Ms. Burns, you believe that your boyfriend, Mr. Jones, could be your son's father.
Now, this is an interesting case. Ms. Burns cheated on her husband only 3 months after their wedding. That's ridiculous. Even worse, she moved out and went to live with her boyfriend, who, surprisingly, is also in court today.
Every time that we would get into an argument, she would leave me and go be with another person. And then if she got upset with that person, she would do the exact same thing, come back to me and sleep with me.
Now, how long did this go on for?
For about a year.
You married her during this time, and you continually take her back.
That's right, because I love her.
What? This man watched his wife shuffle between different men for a whole year and still always welcomed her home. This is a special kind of love. And guess what? It gets even worse if you can believe it.
Our marriage was good at first, mine and Kevin's. And
Well, it's just 90 days.
Yes, but Mr. Powell's had a job and then he'd lose his job. He had a job and then he'd lose his job. I figured everything was put off on me. I have 3 other children other than the baby that I provide for. And I felt like all the burden was pushed off onto me.
You don't provide for your children, your mother does.
That's a nice comeback. But wait, 3 other children? So Ms. Burns had 3 children and a new husband, but she kept sleeping with different men. We need to get more details about this story, because so far, it's not very clear.
We have a child together. We have a 6-year-old together. So when the DNA come up for her and he come back the father to her, he wanted to meet her because he hadn't seen her pretty much her whole life.
Oh, so when you say the DNA came up, explain to me what you're saying. There was DNA testing done on this child.
Yes.
And he
And
was
he is-
one of the candidates that had to take the test?
Yes, Your Honor.
What the heck is going on? First, Ms. Burns has been in a situation similar to this one. She's questioned the paternity of one of her other kids before. Second, how does a married woman leave her home to stay with a baby daddy who hasn't been around for 6 years?
So when you were pregnant, did you tell both men you were pregnant?
Yes, Your Honor. I told Mr. Jones and he reacted differently than I expected.
What was that?
He
I was
mad.
pissed off, Your Honor. I wasn't very happy. I have 3 other kids, and then we got a DNA test with our 6-year-old, coming out to find out that I'm the father of that one. And
What did Mr. Powell say when you told him?
He didn't really say anything.
Whew. This has to be one of the most unbelievable cases we've ever come across. Ms. Burns and Mr. Jones have kids of their own and one together, and Mr. Jones doesn't want another kid. Then there's Mr. Powell, who doesn't know what to believe anymore.
Who was at the hospital?
My mother was.
I was never called, Your Honor.
You never got a call?
I never got a call, I never got a text, I ain't nothing.
We're still having sex, Your Honor.
All this time?
Yes. Even to this day.
What?
You know, up till a week ago.
Up till a week ago?
Yes.
Wait, Mr. Jones, you're laughing. Are you laughing because you don't believe it, or are you laughing because it's possible?
No, this is unbelievable. Mr. Powell and Ms. Burns are still having sex. These people are divorced. Apart from that, there's a paternity issue at hand, and Ms. Burns is supposed to be with someone else.
The question you were asked was as follows. Are you lying when you said you had sex with Ashley Burns in the last 30 days? You answered no, which meant you had sex and you weren't lying.
Yes, we did.
The lie detector determined you were telling the truth.
Now what?
What do you have to say now?
Mr. Powell went as far as taking a lie detector test to prove that he and Ms. Burns are still having sex because he knew she was going to lie in court. Mr. Jones seems to think the whole thing is ridiculous, and so do we.
I have no idea, Your Honor. I did not know this was going to be like this. I'm kind of
It's
hurt.
because she's lying to both of us.
I have.
That's what's been going on the whole time.
I so agree with you, man, because the main reason why I actually left Miss Burns because she cheated on me way back when, and that is the reason why I didn't know the 6-year-old could have been mine. That's why I needed the DNA test to figure that out.
We're as confused as you, Mr. Jones. Turns out Ms. Burns is a serial cheat and liar, and honestly, it's getting out of hand. Nobody knows what to believe anymore. Who is lying? Who is telling the truth?
I buy things for the baby all the time because I didn't know if this was my child or not.
Because you love the child.
I do, and I love the mother of this child.
And do you still want to be with her today?
Absolutely. When we got married, you know, she told me ahead of time that she had 3 children previous to our relationship, and I always wanted a family.
You may be thinking Mr. Powell is out of his mind, but he is just a man in love. What's sad is he's in love with the wrong person. This woman doesn't care about him, not even in the slightest bit.
After what I've heard today, Your Honor, I hope it's Mr. Powell's.
Really?
And
Why
Your
do you
Honor,
say that?
Your Honor, because like I said, Your Honor, I have 3 kids besides Lucas, Your Honor, and actually, want to be technical, I would have 4 kids, Your Honor. I do take care of her other daughter that's not mine, and she calls me daddy and everything like that, Your Honor.
At this point, the men have formed an alliance because they are both victims of Ms. Burns' tactics. How can you have your children called 2 different men daddy? It's a lot to handle.
This is a first where the 2 would-be fathers have now taken the same side of the plaintiff podium against you. I've never seen it in all my days. And before I go to the results, I have to give you another opportunity because there obviously have been some lies. Is there something you have not said in this courtroom?
She finally said the truth. It's time for the results. Let's find out who the lucky, or should we say unlucky, baby daddy is. The good thing is that Judge Lauren has all the results we might need right here for us.
Mr. Jones, you are his father. That you perpetrating on these 2 men. I mean, you just got them all messed up in the head. Mr. Jones thought he was the father, then he heard you cheated, then he didn't want to be the father, but he is the father. Mr. Powell thought he was the father, but he's not the father, but he wants to be with you, and
I don't know now.
This was a paternity case like no other. With so much regret, Mr. Patrick appeared in court, claiming that a stranger whom he welcomed into his home out of the kindness of his heart ended up sleeping with his girlfriend. He now believes he is not the father of her twins.
Mr. Patrick, you say 5 years ago you made a huge mistake by opening your doors to a stranger who needed a place to stay because that man betrayed you and slept with your girlfriend, Ms. Pence. Today, you're here to prove that you didn't father Pence's fraternal twins, 4-year-olds Larry and Carrie, and the other man did. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Patrick must have been a really welcoming man. The question ringing in everyone's head was about how a stranger he welcomed into his home ended up kicking it in bed with his girlfriend.
So you basically took in a person that was going to rent a room?
Yeah, basically, yes.
Okay.
Well, he stayed maybe 5 or 6 days, and he up and moved out. I questioned her. I said, wonder why he just up and left. Is it because me and you argue a lot?
Okay.
You know, time goes on. Me and her sat around and had a few drinks, sitting at home enjoying ourselves.
OMG, she sneaked out to sleep with the stranger? Now that's something you don't see every day. In trying to defend herself, she claimed that Mr. Patrick always accused her of sleeping with people. But was that really the case?
Yes, Mr. Patrick. I had never slept with anyone else before that night. I had constantly.
You're so flirtatious.
I was that's how I was brought up. I'm constantly calling people honey and babe.
What did
that's
I tell you?
I'm from the South.
Different
that's how
men
I
will
was
take it
raised.
different.
It has nothing to do with that. I never slept with anyone before that. Never. You constantly accused me of it, and I kept telling you, you're going to keep pushing, and it's going to happen.
Mr. Patrick might be onto something there. Maybe the sexual tension was getting too much for them to handle. Anyway, Ms. Penn was not going to deny that what she did was wrong, but she claimed that deep down in her heart, she wanted to make things right.
Why that guy? It seemed like you went out looking for him.
There was no specific reason as to why that guy. It was just someone at the time that was around, and it happened.
So in other words, you
But he
could've did
wasn't
that with
around,
anybody.
he had left the house.
He had, Your Honor. I was with my neighbor, like I had stated earlier. Me and her had had went out. I did kind of look for him.
I mean, can she really blame him for thinking she's always cheating after what she did? She better cut him some slack. Judge Lauren then went on to ask her when she found out she was pregnant.
And then on August 7th is the date that the twins were born.
That don't mean that. That's a 5-day window.
It does. The doctor had said that the twins were conceived right around the 2nd of November, Your Honor. The twins were born almost completely full term. And if you count those dates back, it only leads to Mr. Patrick.
Oh, she thought she was smart. Was she trying to hide the date she slept with the stranger from the judge? Oh well. Aside from the fact that she cheated on him, Mr. Patrick told the judge that he had other reasons that made him doubt the baby was his.
What are those doubts?
I think he's ADHD or something like that. You know what I mean? He doesn't listen. He's rambunctious.
He's a little boy.
I understand
Mr.
he's a
Patrick.
little boy, and I hope he grows out of it someday, but I believe he's ADHD or
There's
something.
nothing wrong
He's
with
autistic.
And so-
doesn't run in my family.
How do you
doesn't
know
run in
that?
her family.
How do you know that it doesn't
Well,
run
I've
in your
been
family?
with you for 10 years, honey.
It doesn't matter. You don't know everything, every single thing about your family history.
I'm not going to fault Judge Lauren for asking a doctor to come to the courtroom. Mr. Patrick, for some reason, felt that one of the twins had a disorder that made him feel the child was not his. This was what the doctor had to say.
So sometimes we can point to one gene, sometimes it's multiple genes, and sometimes it's the way that the genes interact with the environment, and sometimes the genes have nothing to do with it, and it's just something that happened during the pregnancy or during the delivery or in that child's early childhood that can affect how they learn.
That's interesting because you're saying the gene could be a factor, but there's also the gene plus the environment component.
Right.
From the doctor's explanation, it looks like Mr. Patrick might be wrong to claim that he is the father of just one of the twins. But one thing was certain, his doubts were affecting his relationship with Ms. Penny on a major level.
We've always had arguments over stuff.
Yes, but Your Honor,
Just
we
after all this
haven't even been had sex in probably the past 4 months. It's just a constant argument from the time that I get up until the time that I go to bed. Pretty much, it's constant argument.
Concerning paternity issues?
Paternity and the one night stand and him saying that it happened more than the one time, Your Honor.
You heard Mr. Patrick. If it happens that he isn't the father of the twins, he is dumping Ms. Pence's ass and leaving her with the kids. After so much talking had been done, Judge Lauren felt it was time to reveal the results of the lie detector test.
You were asked the following questions. During the last 10 years of your relationship with Mr. Patrick, have you had sexual contact with any other man other than the man whom you admitted to cheating with?
Yes, Your Honor.
You said no. The lie detector determined you were being deceptive.
How is that?
Oh, wow. Ms. Penn had more skeletons in her cupboard than she was willing to tell the courtroom. After hearing those results, Judge Lauren felt it was time to reveal the DNA results and see if anything Ms. Pence said was true at all.
Mr. Patrick, you are the father.
I told you that you was the father. I told you.
Are you relieved, Mr. Patrick?
Oh, very much so. The deception stuff with the lie detector test, that's something that's going to have to be worked on because that just right there shows me I may not be able to trust her again.
Ms. Cousin and her mother had one goal in that courtroom. That was to prove to her ex-boyfriend and his new girlfriend that he was the father of her child. Trust me, these guys weren't here to play.
You and your mother say you had no choice but to drag the defendant, Mr. Bell, into court today because you're fed up with his lies.
Yes,
He denies being the father of your 7-month-old son, Taquan, and has even gone to the extreme by blocking all contact with you. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Bell, you say that Miss Cousin has told you that you are not Taquan's father.
Everyone in that courtroom was tense. Ms. Cousin's mom was a force not to be reckoned with. She had all the power in the world to fight anyone who wronged her and her daughter. She wasn't the one who was hurt, but she sure was doing all the talking in that courtroom.
I'm fed up with his lies because he's a two-time liar. He told my daughter that he was single, that he was not in a relationship. I know he was in a relationship with her because I seen his picture on her phone. When she started being with him, I seen how her attitude changed. I knew then that she was pregnant.
Apparently, Mr. Bell lied to his daughter and told her he was not in any relationship, but deep down, he had been seeing someone else. false. Mr. Bell was definitely not going to keep quiet while they dragged his name through the mud.
We went out once, but that was it. A whole weekend? No. I had to get back to her.
You went out once, a whole weekend, yes. And then not only that, y'all had lunch together.
Can she let her daughter talk?
I
She wasn't there.
Room. I go in her room. I found receipts with 2 combos on it. I asked her what the combos for. She for him and her.
Mr. Bell wasn't just sleeping with her, he was also using her to sort out some of his bills. Ms. Cousin was furious. She couldn't understand why a man would lie to her daughter and still manipulate her into paying his bills.
When she should have been.
Were you paying his phone bill?
Yes. While she was paying his phone bill and paying him, buying him lunch, I was also doing other things for me and my husband have a roof over our head. We don't have no other income, but what my husband do is work. And at the end of the day, I want Cortez to step up and take the responsibility and be a man and help take care of his son.
Mr. Bell wasn't changing his story. He stood firm with his side of the story and said everything they accused him of was a big, fat lie. There was no relationship between them, and all he did was flirt with her and eat whatever food she offered him. Nothing more.
No.
Well, you said you already ate the food because she was buying it.
Yeah, she offered.
So, Mr. Bell, you said this was a one-time thing when you had sex with...
In a car.
Oh, okay, so you had sex in a car. Did you use protection?
Yes.
No lie.
Yes.
No lie. Miss Cousin and her mom, they're claiming that this was going on. This was an ongoing relationship. That's not true?
No.
When Ms. Cousin's daughter found out she was pregnant, she called Mr. Bell to tell him about it, and on the spot, he denied the pregnancy, saying it couldn't be his, and he wanted nothing to do with the baby.
When I came home, I called him. I said, I'm pregnant. He said, oh, well, call me back. Let me know what you gonna do. And that was it, and he hung up the phone.
Did you tell your manager at work?
I told my manager, because that's the day that my back was hurting. She said,
And she
you could
told
go.
me the baby wasn't mine. I don't want the baby by you anyway.
Wait, he just said that you told him the baby wasn't his.
It was turning into an unending catastrophe in the courtroom. The judge had taken enough of their rants and arguments, and she decided it was time to bring the situation to a close by reading out the DNA results. Who do you think the father of the child would be? Mr. Baker or his so-called best friend?
Mr. Bell, you are the father.
Thank you, Lord Jesus. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You silent now.
I'll take my child support papers in the mail.
You've been chirping off all day.
All day.
You could not let them get a sentence out without downplaying everything they said. Everything.
As roller coasters go on paternity court, this case right here will leave you speechless. Ms. Kelso was in court to prove that the defendant, Mr. Davis, is the father of her child, even though he claims that she was in a relationship with another man while they were intimate. Well, here's how it all started.
Miss Kelso, you are in court today to prove that Mr. Davis is the father of your 9-month-old baby, Connor Kelso.
Yes, Your Honor.
You claim Mr. Davis has done nothing for your son, so you're suing for half the child rearing expenses in the sum of $2,561. Is that correct?
Oh, wow. She was dating someone else while kicking in bed with Mr. Davis? I mean, who do we even blame in this type of situation? Oh, well, Judge Lauren is about to get to the bottom of it all. Let's see what Ms. Kelso and Mr. Davis have really been up to in the shadows.
He was out of town at the time.
So you were with another man, and then you saw Mr. Davis during that time?
Yes, Your Honor.
So you did sleep with Mr. Davis during the window of conception?
Yes, Your Honor.
So, Mr. Davis, do you remember having sexual intercourse without using protection with Ms. Kelso?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ha! This guy can't be serious with what he just said. He remembers when they kicked it in bed but cannot remember the time they did? Come on! At least we know one thing. They both agree on the fact that they were intimate while Ms. Kelso was in a relationship.
And you were with Mr. Hafner just 1 week after you were with Mr. Davis?
Yes, Your Honor.
And your baby was how many days late?
6, Your Honor.
6 days late. Okay. When the child came late, did you ever think to yourself, maybe it's Mr. Hafner's child, not Mr. Davis?
These two have to be hilarious. Ms. Kelso believes the baby belongs to Mr. Davis because the child looks and sounds like him. As you would expect, Mr. Davis is not riding the same boat. Mr. Davis says, there is no way on earth the baby looks or sounds like him. Now who's lying?
She's told me in person the child's not mine. She's told me over Facebook I have pictures of her telling me on on Facebook
I'd like to see those.
that she's not that I'm not the father.
So this is a post from you, Amber Kelso. It reads, "My son is not yours."
Yes, I told him that because I didn't want him coming back to my house while I was pregnant. He put me through way too much stress, so I just told him the child's not yours to get him away from me.
Oh, is the lady being serious? How do you tell a man he is not the father of the child and not expect him to believe you? She has got to be joking. That explains why Mr. Davis believes he is not the father of the child. I mean, you really can't blame him.
Your Honor, I know for a fact at least 10 people that I know personally that she's had intercourse with. I have no reason to be there for this child.
Well, Mr. Davis fails to explain about the times that I had sex with the people that he knows because none of them were around the area of the conception date, not even months around.
So, Mr. Davis, even if she was sleeping with...
What? Did Mr. Davis just say she's slept with at least 10 people since he has known her? That has to be a lie. But then again, could he be saying the truth? I mean, they had a sexual relationship while she was in a relationship with another man.
I have to ask you, do you think baby Connor is your child?
That's what I think.
You do?
Yes, Your Honor.
And so, have you done anything for Connor thus far? Have you helped in raising him?
Yes, Your Honor. I have been feeding him, being there for him.
Mr. Davis is one hilarious man, but the look on Mr. Hafner's face says it all. He cares so much about the child. He's literally been the one taking care of the baby since its birth. Believe me, he would be heartbroken if he did not end up being the father.
I mean, just around Mr. Hafner's family, that's it. You know, leading them to believe, oh, this is his family, you know, this is his child, yet I'm the father. Yeah, you know, yet the child looks just like me.
Well, I mean, Ms. Kelso, that is an interesting point. On the one hand, you're saying he stresses you out and you don't want him to be around. On the other hand, you're accusing him of not helping.
I'm siding with the judge on this one. If you don't want him around the child, why then is she claiming he is the father of the child? It does not make any sense. One thing is for sure though, Mr. Davis does not want to be the father of the child.
You don't have to be sorry about being emotional about a child. We understand how important they are.
I love them to death.
And this is a picture of Connor on the left, and this is a picture of Mr. Hafner's grandfather, which is your father,
yes, Your Honor,
on the right. And you say you truly see a resemblance.
On a scale from 1 to 10, that's an 11. And you compare our two pictures, and that's maybe a 2.
Now that's a very valid question. Everyone in Mr. Hafner's family wants the baby to be his, and has even accepted that the baby looks like Mr. Hafner. Nobody gets why Ms. Kelso believes Mr. Davis is the father of her child.
Fine. His lips look like Richard, his hair looks like Jamal's. I just can't tell. They're so similar in different ways.
You are truly confused.
I am.
I can see it on your face.
I'm just absolutely confused, and I don't know.
You really are confused, and I can see it.
I made a mistake by cheating on Mr. Hafner with Mr. Davis.
I guess we are at a crossroads. The only way out of this mess is to reveal the DNA results. Hopefully that clears the air and clears doubts from everyone's mind. Here's what the judge reveals in the end.
In the case of Kelso versus Davis, as it pertains to 9-month-old Connor Kelso, as to whether Mr. Hafner or Mr. Davis is the biological father, it has been determined by this court.
In this episode, it was a battle between a husband and wife and a mistress. Mr. Quarles and his wife were in court to deny Ms. Forrester's child. Mr. Quarles claimed that it was a silly one-night stand and that there was no way he could be the father of her child. Well, the roller coaster began like this.
Mr. Quarles, both you and your wife have petitioned the court today for a DNA test for 4-year-old Sierra Forrester. You claim that due to a one-night stand, you are now in financial shambles caused by child support for a child you don't believe is yours.
Seems like Mr. Quarles' family has zero peace since he had his one-night stand incident with Ms. Forrester. He claims all his money has been going toward child support for Ms. Forrester's child, and he is just tired of taking care of a child that is not his.
Work to the other house, but how do I get put on child support and I ain't signed no birth certificate,
Well, you were named the father by default because you didn't show up to court. The address they had of record, the notice went there. You say you had moved, but they sent it to probably your last known address.
Ha ha ha. Mr. Quarles has just been schooled schooled on how child support works. I guess next time, when he decides to have a one-night, he is going to show up in court when they claim him as the father of the child.
Go to jail.
Yes, and next month I have a court date that they might just send me to jail for 6 months.
All for a child that you don't believe is your biological child.
Exactly.
Because you missed a court date. You say you initially said he was not the father.
Right.
Then you changed it.
Yes, ma'am.
How did that happen?
Because Miss Hernandez came up to me and asked me if he was the father.
Wow. Looks like there is a lot on the line for Mr. Quarles. He better make things right so he doesn't end up in jail. Ms. Forrester, on the other hand, has a lot of explaining to do. I'm so not buying her story of claiming not to want to cause any trouble in Mr. Quarles' marriage.
You're saying that it was more than one time.
Yes, ma'am.
And you asked the court to administer a lie detector test?
Yes, ma'am.
Jerome, do we have those results? So you volunteered for a lie detector test because you say you had sex with him more than once?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Quarles, before I read these, I don't know what the answers are and what the results are, but I just want to give you an opportunity.
Oops! Let the truth out, Mr. Quarles. Lie detectors definitely do not tell lies. Seems like Ms. Forrester has been truthful all along. So why on God's green earth has Mr. Quarles been lying in the courtroom?
We slept together on and off for about 3 months.
And how often during that 3 months time were you intimate?
About 5 to 8 times.
So you're pregnant, you tell Mr. Quarles it's his child?
Yes.
What was his response?
First. No, I told Yuri first. He came over that night and I showed him 5 different pregnancy tests.
Let's just say getting the truth out of Mr. Quarles and Ms. Forrester is going to be one tedious job for Judge Lauren. These guys don't seem like they are ready to let the truth out. Believe me. Oh well, the truth always comes out in the end, doesn't it?
Forrester, were you sleeping with anybody else besides Mr. Quarles during the window of conception?
No, Your Honor.
He says 2 guys said they were sleeping with you too.
2 black guys.
He's the only black guy I've ever slept with my whole entire life. That's why
What's the difference if they black, white, yellow, green? What's the difference? So you're saying the baby is biracial?
Now that is just hilarious to listen to. But Ms. Forrester is right, though. It works both ways, so Mr. Quarles' wife can take a chill pill with the whole accusation. Even her husband isn't denying the fact that he slept with Ms. Forrester.
Still by yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
Does he participate at all?
He's only seen her 3 times since she's been born.
And she's 4 now?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you tell Ms. Quarles, did you tell his wife you were taking the child to see him?
I do not believe Ms. Quarles knew that he was seeing her.
Did you know he was seeing the baby?
I knew about 1 time.
At this point, let's just say the DNA result is the only way out of this mess, and most certainly the only way to get the truth out of them both. Well, here are the results.
In the case of Quarles versus Forrester, when it comes to 4-year-old Sierra Forrester, it has been determined by...
Do you know that feeling when your best friend goes running to your boyfriend to tell them all about your different escapades with other men? Well, Ms. Stremke knows that feeling very well. It all began like this.
Mr. Jaramillo, you claim your doubt is valid because you were present when another man impregnated Ms. Stremke, and the family you thought you were building is not salvageable until you have DNA proof. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
So, Ms. Stremke, why is your family falling apart?
Your Honor, I feel like my family is falling apart because my daughters are basically growing up how I had to. We didn't have both parents.
That's right, Ms. Stremke. Children are extremely wise, and you don't want your child to grow up in that sort of situation. Mr. Jaramillo says this is regrettable, but he really can't do anything about it since paternity issues get brought up in fights.
I feel that those are his kids.
When you got pregnant with the oldest daughter, Naviana, what was the issue surrounding her paternity?
I had just gotten out of a relationship with my son's father and had moved back to Iowa. Well, I ended up where I had slept with another man. And this is before me and Mr. Jaramillo had gotten together. But it was very, very shortly after that we got together. And it was like maybe 3 or 4 weeks.
Now, Mr. Jaramillo had never met this friend before, but he believed every word she said. Ms. Stremke, of course, knew the friend in question and argued that it was all a lie.
Which I really don't understand, because how can you base your daughter's paternity off of some girl you had never even met?
Well, it was one of your friends, you know, you'd spent time with her.
What did she say to you exactly, Mr. Jaramillo?
She said that the baby that Miss Stremke had been impregnated with wasn't mine, that she had been sleeping with numerous males.
How long had you been together at that point?
We had been together for 2.5, 3 weeks.
Another thing is that Ms. Stremke and Mr. Jaramillo had only been together for about a month before Ms. Stremke told him that she was pregnant. To make things things worse, Naviana was born about 3 weeks early, which makes it seem like the child truly doesn't belong to Mr. Jaramillo.
About the time that the other males were present.
I was upfront with you and told you that there was one other person before we had gotten together.
You said one other person, and then came another fellow that your best friend told me about.
I had never slept with anybody but one person besides you, and that was before we had gotten together.
But Naviana is 4 years old. Did you ever attempt to have a paternity test back then?
What about the second daughter? What doubts does Mr. Jaramillo have about her? And exactly how did he get those doubts? The answer will probably surprise you.
It's like, okay, well, it wouldn't be the worst thing because we're getting along really well. The question of paternity is not being brought up anymore. And that's when we ended up deciding to like spice up our sex life and everything, and we ended up having a female-female threesome with him. So he got to pick another woman, and it was what it was. We did it, and then it was maybe a couple weeks later it got brought up. It'd only be fair if we had a male, and you.
Mr. Jaramillo's friend didn't come over for pancakes. He came over for a different sort of cake. Mr. Jaramillo invited his friend to have intercourse with his wife, and none of the 3 people involved used any sort of protection.
It was a mutual suggestion between Amber and I. We had gone through it back and forth between Miss Stremke and I. It was a toss-up back and forth. One minute she'd want to do it, the next minute she didn't. And from being with Amber, I know if she's gonna do something, it has to be on the spot.
All had sex. Did the friend use protection?
Neither one of us used protection, Your Honor.
Look, if you want to spice up your marriage, here's some good advice. Don't invite other people into it. If you want to add more excitement to your marriage, go see a movie, get on a jet, and go for a vacation. Anyway, let's find out who the child's birth father is.
Mr. Jaramillo, you are the father.
Oh my God, this is so good. This is so good.
You look so relieved.
I am.
And I hope you all understand now that you have this clarity, that this clarity will present itself on many levels in your relationship.
Ms. Hilburn claimed to be caught in a love triangle, and the result of that ended with her giving birth to her 10-month-old daughter. The defendant, Mr. Barnes, claimed he caught her with another man on Valentine's Day and is determined to prove he is not the father of the child. This was how the case began.
For the past 3 years, which you say resulted in the birth of your 10-month-old daughter, Saray. But you're here to prove she is the defendant's baby.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your relationship ended, but soon after giving Ms. Hilburn another chance, you discovered she was still sleeping with the other man.
Mr. Barnes seems like a really good dad. Being there for everything just makes you want to have him as a dad. Now, how did it all go wrong with this sweet dad and Ms. Hilburn? Well, this was the next mind-blowing thing that came out of Mr. Barnes's mouth.
I couldn't be because she is still legally married, so I was not able to be put on her.
I wasn't expecting you to say that, so she's still legally married to someone else?
I would want more than anything to actually be her father. Because I was there, I've put the time, the commitment, the love. She's my daughter for all I know, so I want it to be that way.
Wow. Let's just say Ms. Hilburn has been one busy woman, jumping from one man to the next. Now I understand why she calls it a love triangle. Here's where things get even more complicated. Mr. Hilburn had no idea she was sleeping with another man.
Before Valentine's Day, which is the first time it happened, I was at work. She said she's going to her friends. Okay, fine, go ahead. I get home, I try texting her, try calling her, no response. So whatever, I go to sleep. The next day, Miss Hilburn and the other gentleman come back to the house. They're brought by the people that they stayed with. I was informed by the people who brought them that they had slept together that night.
That is not true. I told him.
Wait, what? They were all living together? At this point, one can only ask if the situation is going to get any messier than this. Seeing that it's one hell of a mess, Judge Lauren decides to ask Ms. Hilburn how they got themselves into such a messy situation. Well, this is what she had to say about that.
Are you sleeping with both of them while you live in the house with both of them, Ms. Hilburn?
Yes, I was.
I'm not trying to give anyone tips, but how did you pull that off?
He would go to work. As soon as he left, me and the other guy would have sex.
Did both guys know you were with the other one?
Not all the time, they didn't.
Damn, that has to hurt. I can't believe she just said that to Mr. Barnes's face. I wonder what kind of lies she was feeding him. Oh well, that was not the craziest thing about this situation. They are both still sleeping with each other. To make things even more insane, she's pregnant with the other guy she was sleeping with.
Mr. Barnes, are you still intimate with Ms. Hilburn?
Yes, ma'am, but we use condoms.
Ms. Hilburn, are you also still with the other guy?
Yes, and 5 months after this baby was born, I became pregnant again.
Oh, so you're pregnant now?
Yes, 7 months.
You're pregnant right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Eben Judge Lauren is out of words because what the hell is going on? She doesn't even know who the father of her unborn child could be. Wow. Now, when Ms. Hilburn found out she was pregnant, she claimed she told Mr. Barnes first, and this was how he reacted.
I told Mr. Barnes first. He said that he wanted to see the proof because there had been other times that I lied to him about being pregnant. So I took the paper to him and showed that I was pregnant, and he was happy because he wanted to be a father.
Okay, so even though she lied before about being pregnant,
Yeah, I saw the proof this
you saw
time,
the proof,
so I was happy.
and you were happy.
Yes, Your Honor.
I mean, you can see it on his face. Mr. Barnes's heart is broken beyond repair. What even hurts him the most is the fact that he loves the child so much. He goes on to tell the judge how devastating it would be if the results revealed that he was not the biological father of the child.
It wouldn't devastate me. I was there from day one. You know, the fact that she might not be mine, it hurts.
And I regret it. I really do.
Ms. Hilburn, there's a part of me that wants to believe you regret it, and yet you find yourself in the exact same situation again. I don't know how much more difficult a life lesson has to be.
Another blow to his heart. The poor man would wish he had never met Ms. Hilburn in his entire life. But things take another wild turn in the courtroom. Apparently, Mr. Barnes has a girlfriend with whom he claims to also be in love. Trust me, this is the craziest case ever.
Ms. Hilburn and Barnes, his girlfriend, the guy you're sleeping with, that's all the play.
Yes.
So, Mr. Barnes, you got a girlfriend.
Yes, I do.
Does she know about this relationship?
She suspects, but when you don't see your girlfriend for 7 months, you don't see her.
I think we've seen enough of this crazy couple. It just keeps going from bad to the absolute worst. Anyway, the results are in. It is time to see if Mr. Barnes is going to end up as the father of the child.
Barnes, you are not Saray's father. And as much as I believe and would bet my bottom dollar, Ms. Hilburn, that you have orchestrated a lot of this mess.
This man cheated on his wife with this woman and very casually told her about it. Now he's in court denying her baby and claiming that the 1-month-old baby could belong to just anybody. Babies are made when men cheat too, Mr. Stewart. They don't just fall from trees.
Numbers, and from there we hooked up a couple of times or whatever.
So first you just dating casual?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we always had to get a room, you know, and I used to ask him like, you know, I'm tired of going to the room, you know, can we go to your house? You said you have a house, you own it. And he was like, you know, I have unwanted company there.
Would you look at that? He consistently took her to hotels. They kept cheating while being hidden from the world like fugitives. If the woman did not ask questions about his life and the unwanted company, he never would have mentioned it. To think that he really called his wife unwanted company too.
Yeah. Did you meet Miss Dallas, date her casually, have sex with her, and finally only later tell her that you were married?
It didn't quite go like that. You know,
how did it go?
You know, it didn't come up. You know, I felt like it didn't come up. Like, you know, yes, Your Honor.
So wait, you were basically out acting like a single man?
No, I wouldn't act, yeah.
Oh, the audacity of this man. He's out here saying that it never came up? Trust me, if you wore your wedding band or acted like a married man in the first place by not picking up women at the bar, then maybe you wouldn't be in this situation. What a guy, really.
Okay, so you were out there acting like a single man, but you were married?
Yes, Your Honor.
Were you getting a divorce then?
I wasn't in, you know, I didn't have it filed, but in my head, yeah, I was getting a divorce.
In your head. That means you were still married?
Yes.
Moving on. So, how often did you see one another? If you're married with your wife living at home?
Oh, that's it, every day.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. This place is starting to look like a circus. Someone get Mr. Stewart a colored wig and some makeup because we have a clown in court. This man claims that he was getting a divorce in his head, but he hadn't filed it yet. Does not stop him from sleeping with God knows how many women alongside his wife, though.
Yeah, I thought everything was gonna be okay after that. And then when I found out I was pregnant, Cedric was happy or whatever.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
So you were genuine, even though you were still married to your wife, you were happy your mistress was pregnant?
Yes.
Do you have any other children?
Yes.
You do? How many?
3.
With your wife?
No, we have no kids. Common.
Oh my goodness. The moment you think it can't get worse, it goes ahead to do just that. This man has at least 3 children outside of his marriage. He's been married for 10 years too. How does one stay 10 years in an unhappy marriage? You keep divorce papers in your head. That's how. Just like Mr. Stewart, who's keeping divorce papers in his head and nothing in real life.
Started beginning doubt. So-called my associate was telling him and his wife that I was sleeping around with.
Knew you?
Yeah.
They start giving you information?
Yeah. But it was the same friend that sent him naked pictures of herself to him, telling him that I was, sleeping around with somebody else. So why wasn't she?
Oh boy, there is just no saving this man, really. Every minute something worse than the last makes its way out of his mouth. Now he's receiving questionable pictures from other women too? Now why are women who supposedly provide you with information providing you with sex as well, Mr. Stewart?
Because when me and Cedric were supposed to be together, Roberta sent me a picture of him and Cedric in the bed. Now Cedric has my name tattooed on him. In the bed, naked together.
His wife sends a picture to you of them in the bed.
Yes, and he was asleep and she was taking a picture. She sent it to me and that was
after you're pregnant?
No, she didn't know I was pregnant. We was in a hospital at the time all this.
Oh my goodness, his wife is still with him till now? Does Mr. Stewart still have the divorce papers in his head till today? Imagine going with your husband to court to listen to all of these shenanigans. And wait a bloody minute, he has whose name tattooed where? What a guy.
She got other kids, you know what I mean? I got a relationship with them, so I wouldn't just be gone.
Wait a minute, now you standing next to your wife and you telling me how you gonna be there for your mistress. I'm getting confused. Who are you actually with right now? So you and Miss Dallas are together?
Yeah, we live together.
You
we
live
don't live
together?
We kind of...
What's that?
You know what I
We
mean?
live together, but he go back and
moved in
forth.
together, but we...
Of course they're still together. We may have thought Mr. Stewart is slow, but dumb and dumber it would seem. Miss Stewart takes the prize. How is she supporting him after everything he has done and is still doing? This woman has her priorities twisted in a bunch.
And try to make me look like a fool because you didn't want to be with Lakeitha.
You trying to make yourself look like a fool. We don't hear about paternity. You trying to tell her life story, your life story.
We're telling
That
the
ain't got nothing to do
truth.
with the
We're here
baby.
to tell the truth. If you had no doubts, you questioned paternity on the reason you met her.
You all basically know exactly what's happening here, and you know he's playing you all.
Yes, that's it right there. Judge Lake is saying everything we're all thinking. This woman has the audacity to walk into paternity court to defend her silly husband who has at least 3 babies out of wedlock. She has been with him for 14 years too.
The father of that child. Knew it from the beginning. Trifling. All my money back. All my money back. I paid too much.
She said that was a good speech. None of them would be here if you were sure.
None of us would be here. None of us had multiple sex partners, bro. Let he who was without sin cast the first stone. How many sins you got, bro? Go ahead. Go ahead. We're here for hours.
We're here for yours.
We're here for hours.
We're here for yours.
Hours.
My thing is,
go ahead.
don't
Can we go?
Matlock versus Monroe is definitely the poster child for cases that have shamelessness, disrespect, and most definitely crazy as the key elements. Mr. Matlock was in court because he had reasonable cause to deny and doubt the paternity of Ms. Monroe's child. Apparently, Ms. Monroe had invited her former lover into the home that she shared with Mr. Matlock while he was away for business.
Please be seated.
Hello, Your Honor. This is a case of Matlock versus Monroe.
Thank you, Jerome. Good day, everyone. Mr. Matlock, you say that a few years back you were suddenly called away on family business.
Yes,
while
Your Honor.
absent.
Interestingly, Ms. Monroe had doubts of her own, and as well as a line of defense regarding why she brought someone else into the home, Mr. Matlock speaks on why he had a very long absence from the home he shared with Ms. Monroe. Was this the weirdest arrangement or what?
You admit that you have serious doubts about the paternity of your child as well. You argue that when Mr. Matlock left on family business, he stopped answering your phone calls and texts for an entire month.
Yes, Your Honor.
That's not correct.
In your defense, you say you believed he was never coming back again.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Matlock denies ever receiving any calls from Ms. Monroe, even though she strongly insists she tried to reach him several times. He definitely felt like he shouldn't have to share the time with his son with Ms. Monroe. He also implies that Ms. Monroe may have been thinking he was having affairs on the side, but he clearly didn't care. They got into a bitter argument. It was safe to say there was no love lost between the two parties.
He never answered my calls, and this went on for a whole month.
So, Mr. Matlock, were you getting phone calls from Ms. Monroe and not answering?
No, Your Honor, I wasn't. I would talk to her when I called her, but I don't feel like when I'm spending time with my son, I should have to drop spending time with my son to call her every waking minute.
If I'm your girlfriend, you should care.
In a shocking twist of events, Ms. Monroe tells the court how she tried her best to maintain communication with Mr. Matlock and failed continuously. And as a result of this failure, she decided to move her ex-I to their home. But despite all of this, the parties had a conversation and settled their differences before Mr. Matlock returned.
Ms. Monroe, when he went out of town, did he voluntarily call you at all while he was gone?
Lies.
Maybe,
not one call?
Maybe the whole time he was gone.
Okay, so 2 or 3 times you did speak to him.
Yes.
But when you called him, he didn't return your call.
He would not answer my call.
One fine day, the plot thickened. When Mr. Monroe got a call informing him of Ms. Monroe's pregnancy, the call was not coming from the house, but from a totally unexpected source. Interestingly, Ms. Monroe also informed him that the baby wasn't his, and so he disappeared out of their lives.
I get a phone call from my sister. What's up?
You ain't who
May
you
pregnant.
pretended to be.
Whoa, what you mean May pregnant? I just talked to her on the phone.
I told you that.
You didn't tell me that. You told me that after I talked to my sister, and you told my sister that you were pregnant. Anyway, after I found out that she was pregnant.
Ms. Monroe shares the reason why she had totally ruled out the possibility of Mr. Monroe being the dad, and it is quite plausible. Mr. Matlock, on the other hand, definitely believed the child could be anybody else's, including the court's clerk, Jerome, but his. Absolutely outrageous and quite scandalous.
Hey, this is my baby and I'm leaving now.
Okay, you assumed he may not be the father based upon the fact it had been 18 months and you hadn't gotten pregnant.
Yeah, and within that little amount of time I got pregnant.
But is the truth that you really didn't know who the child's father was?
Exactly.
It actually, when I had my 5-year-old.
It turns out that after his grand exit, Mr. Matlock didn't even know Ms. Monroe had put to bed until a friend who is related to Ms. Monroe informed him in the coldest way possible about the child's arrival. Someone else was in the hospital with Ms. Monroe when she had given birth. In an even messier turn of events, Mr. Matlock receives information about Ms. Monroe's affairs with yet another guy. Despite the fact that he was the one paying child support, Ms. Monroe and Mr. Matlock get into another shady argument. Why was he paying child support if he was not the child's father?
Do you know for certain or you just doubt?
Once you say you are not the father to a man, that baby ain't mine no more. I didn't hear from her.
What point did she then claim that you might be the father?
December 31st, 08. Me and her sister are friends.
Okay.
So I call her sister every New Year's. Happy New Year's, what's up?
The turning point for Mr. Monroe was when he missed the court date in the process of confirming the paternity of Ms. Monroe's child, a date he claimed he was unaware of. And that was how he came to be the child's father by default and was placed on mandatory child support. Mr. Matlock explains to the court exactly how the situation with Ms. Monroe was affecting his domestic and love life, and it is quite sad. Ms. Monroe snipes at him.
And if you would have been real about it, if you would have been real about it in the beginning, I would have been there for you.
What you done for
You don't
her?
never know. If you wouldn't have said, hey, it's not your baby, and would have just kept it real and meant, hey, it's a possibility, we could have worked on it, and we could have been still probably been together.
No, I told your sister that.
Out of your mouth, you said you are not the
The court calls Mr. Matlock's relative to the stand as a witness, and it is as messy as World War I between the ladies as they try to convey their sentiments to the judge. In no time, the judge has to pull out the gavel and calm everyone down. The court pulls out a chart to discuss the possible conception dates.
You're working triple shifts.
I'm killing myself.
Trying to make sure you're paying the child
Trying
support.
to find a second job right now. Not only to pay child support, but make sure Christmas, birthdays, school time, my son got what he needs.
So now, Ms. Monroe,
it's all about your
Ms.
son.
Monroe, are you receiving?
If this is my baby, I'm gonna take care of this. I'm gonna take care of your daughter.
At this point, everybody is tired, and emotions are at an all-time high. The only way to resolve the issue is to get to the bottom of the paternity results. Clearly, Ms. Monroe couldn't handle the truth as she walks out of the court immediately after the verdict is announced and sobs uncontrollably, losing all composure. In the light of the truth,
These results were prepared by DNA Diagnostics in the case of Matlock versus Monroe. When it comes to 5-year-old Kenya, Mr. Matlock, you are not.
I knew it. Go find your baby. I told you I wasn't the father of that child. Knew it from the beginning. Trifling. Knew it.
Could you imagine dragging all 3 of your lovers to court? Well, this was the very special case of Holman versus Drumgold had everyone in court quite shook, as she had brought 3 men who could possibly be her baby's father to court to confirm which one was the real deal. Even more messy was the fact that she was not dating any of them, and they clearly had no respect for each other.
Mr. Rich,
Go back up.
you came here to get an answer.
I have not called him lately.
I don't care, man. My phone tells it all.
Calm down.
Your Honor,
Calm
that was
down.
a nice speech. That was a nice speech, but that's all it was, a speech.
Sloppy,
if Leanne could have had it her way and now one of us know, we wouldn't be here today.
This was the most intense courtroom session in a minute, as the arguments on who the baby's father might be intensified, and a visibly emotional Ms. Holdman couldn't hold back her emotions as she completely lost it. Mr. Rich, who had taken the witness stand, simply hoped he was the baby's father, as he loved her a lot. It was clear Mr. Rich was very pissed and was not afraid to show it.
That's okay.
Truth coming out.
I'm not a bad person. I do bad things.
Look at me.
There's a difference.
Look at me. You've admitted to where you've gone wrong, and you've also allowed us to see a little piece of what your real heart. I'm here with you and for you.
Apparently, Ms. Holdman couldn't really figure out when exactly she got down with Mr. Rich. Mr. Drumgold introduces a third party to court, who was also one of Ms. Holdman's lovers. Ms. Holdman clarifies that Mr. Drumgold had been aware of her rendezvous with Mr. Rich, but not with Mr. Matthews. It seemed like Ms. Holdman liked to keep things as crystal as possible, or not. Aware or not, Mr. Drumgold was clearly not happy he wasn't the only one with the claim to her baby's paternity.
And in that testimony, she said you are a great man, and she's never known a man as good as you, so much so that she didn't think she was good enough for you. That's the part. Just stick with us, okay? We're gonna get through this. So, Ms. Holman and Mr. Drumgold, throughout the testimony, it came out that there were other possible fathers.
As soon as Mr. Matthews is ushered into the courtroom, he is welcomed with some beep-worthy expletives from a visibly past Mr. Rich. Attempts at furthering the proceedings keep getting interrupted by choice words from Mr. Rich, and so the judge excuses him from the court. This moment is quite emotional for Mr. Rich and all parties involved as he exits the court.
And I'd like to hear from him. Jerome, will you please escort Mr. Matthews into the courtroom? Mr. Rich, calm down. Just take a deep breath. Listen, you want the truth? That's what I'm trying to get for you, but you gotta let me get it.
Mr. Matthews acknowledges the possibility that the baby could be his, but Mr. Drumgold doesn't find his confessions of affection funny and isn't here for a possible 3-way relationship, as this may mean that he's not as special as he thought he was in Ms. Holdman's life. Clarifications are made, and it looks like Mr. Drumgold may have to be content with to what extent he mattered in Ms. Holdman's life.
Mr. Matthews, I'd like to ask you a few questions concerning the nature of your relationship with Ms. Holman. Can you tell the court, how did you meet? How long have you been in a relationship?
Well, I met Mrs. Holman.
Not to be defeated, Ms. Holdman goes absolutely ballistic on Mr. Drumgold as she does not like his judgmental tone, and a shouting match ensues with Ms. Drumgold clearly losing it. She wasn't going to allow anyone to shame her, and so the only other thing louder than her shamelessness in the courtroom was her voice.
But yeah, you want this baby to be mine.
Okay, now granted, have I been with all 3 of these men? Yes. How do you know there's only these 3 men? Because I gave them these 3 men name. This is my truth. Here it is. It's ugly. Now I'm trying to get to the bottom of it.
Exactly.
She said that was a good speech.
No.
The bottom line is this. None of them will be here if you were sure.
It's a field day in court, and Judge Lauren has to clear Mr. Drumgold of any delusional feelings he may be harboring concerning the issue of the baby's paternity. Ms. Holdman makes further clarification on her conception dates and why she strongly believes Mr. Drumgold is her baby's father out of the 3 men in court. This admission seems to get everyone even more agitated as they continue to bicker and scream at each other.
My thing is,
go ahead.
Don't
Can we go with the result?
There's no possibility that it couldn't be mine.
Mr. Drumgold, I think you have now entered that space where you're so angry because you feel like because she's saying she really believes it's your baby, the true layers within her testimony.
Was this the most understanding judge ever or what? The constant bickering with Mr. Drumgold has Ms. Holdman crying so much, and she loses her reins on her emotions even more. As the judge validates her person with nice words, it was time to know what the results were, as only one man could be father of the day. This case was so messy and sensitive, Judge Lauren had to recommend their free counseling services.
Mr. Rich is not the father. The next result is for Mr. Matthews. Mr. Matthews, you are not the father. It seems like you were surprised, Mr. Matthews.
I am.
These results are for Mr. Drumgold. Mr. Drumgold, you are the father.
Exactly.
What would you do if you found out your dad may not really be your father? Well, Ms. Ferguson had brought her mother to court because she had come to believe that her mother's husband, Ken Ferguson, who had raised her entire life, was possibly not her father. She had petitioned the court to obtain the truth.
Miss Ferguson, you've brought your mother to court today because you were recently shocked to learn that Ken Ferguson, who raised you your entire life, may not be your biological father. You have petitioned the court for paternity test.
The million-dollar question was how she had arrived at such a painful conclusion by herself, and what had happened to frost the relationship between Ms. Ferguson and her mother. Dysfunctionality and extramarital affair admissions may have been the culprit.
On Mr. Ferguson, whom we'll hear from in a moment.
Mansell, please tell me, how did your relationship with your daughter get to this point?
I have no idea. Just things that were said, things that were done.
It's apparent that you feel badly about it. I see the emotion on your face.
Yeah.
Are there certain particular regrets that you have?
Yeah.
But you understand that she has a right to know who her father is.
Ms. Ferguson decides to reach out to her mom's husband to confess her knowledge of her mom's affairs to him after several attempts at communicating with her mom failed, a gesture that isn't appreciated by her mother, to say the least.
Guy friends and her other friends, not even the husband. So me and him met up.
You met up with
my mom's husband, my stepfather.
Your stepfather?
Yes.
Okay.
We met up and we started talking, and I confessed everything I knew about the past.
Okay.
I knew she was cheating on him.
Ms. Ferguson attempts to explain why she snitched on her mother and hits a sharp edge as a very emotional and pissed Mrs. Ferguson walks out on her and the whole courtroom while saying some very rude things. She had clearly lost it, as she didn't care about disrespecting the judge either.
Perfect, and I'm not here to be degraded like this by my own child.
I know, I don't want to degrade. But why do you keep doing it? Look at what you're still doing today. Just always make people feel bad for you, doesn't she? She just always does that. She's about to
But Miss Mansell,
no. See, this is what you do. You always walk away. You never can talk.
Shut up.
Mrs. Ferguson's flair for unfaithfulness had affected her daughter's life and shaped her social interactions in the most twisted way possible. Apparently, her daughter had come to emulate her behavior, and she had fully supported that particular behavior. This was quite outrageous.
I thought cheating was okay. I cheated on every person I was with until today. And the person I'm with today can't stand my mom.
and she did support you.
That's the only thing she's ever supported me with.
Surprisingly, a long conversation with her stepfather, who she believed to be her father at the time, had raised concerns that she may not be her father's daughter. Mr. Ferguson is introduced into the witness box, and it is clear that he also had doubts but was hoping strongly his stepdaughter was his child.
Your life, you believe Mr. Ferguson was your father?
All my life. We were talking for about 4 hours, and when he told me, I became quiet because it hit me with realization like, wow, you know, I've seen her sleep with so many guys that this doesn't shock me at all.
Why do you have the doubt?
When I first met her at a party, I found out after this because that's when we met. She slept with 4 guys that night.
However, Ms. Ferguson wasn't finding the idea of her daughter airing her business of keeping multiple partners to the public funny, and she expresses that with lots of tears as she loses her cool and exits the courtroom.
Made her know that she cheated on me.
Came here for you to do this, and that's what you're gonna do, is you're gonna drag it all out. When you stood there and you told me all it was to find out about your dad.
Relationships had been damaged possibly beyond repair by this case, but only the truth could set everyone free. The truth is revealed. Ms. Ferguson works out the courtroom, completely losing her chill and kicks of her shoes in the lobby. This mom had totally lost her chill.
I told you I want to repair our relationship
Well, there
too.
is no repair
and
now.
You won't open up.
There
See?
is no
You always
Stop.
give up on
Let
us.
me
Yes,
finish.
sorry.
I'm not a perfect mom. I never tried to be. You know, I did what I could do.
So,
but I love you, and I never once regretted having you.
In the case of Ferguson versus Munsell, when it comes to Alicia Ferguson, Mr. Ferguson, you are her father.
Imagine finding out your dad may not be your father through an argument being had by your father and mother. The Jacob kids had brought out their parents to paternity court to find out who their real father was for that particular reason.
It was possible your dad, Mr. Jacobs, is not your biological father.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Jacob, you're the only father your children have ever known.
Yes.
Tell us about the argument you and your brother overheard.
He coming out the room, going to the kitchen saying, well, those ain't my kids anyway, so I...
The stakes were quite high for the mother as her kids were not playing in the slightest. Her daughter was quite crushed as she had one of the most important days of her life coming up, and she definitely needed her father. At this point, Ms. Razor was crashing out and her mother was completely losing her cool.
This is the only man that I know for all my life. How many men do you know sit in a delivery with their daughter when they're having a baby? Is there something that you need to tell me? Get married in January. He's supposed to walk me down this aisle. And you gotta tell me.
Because I don't know, Precious. I just don't know.
Grandma said that might be my father that I look like.
And I overheard at a cookout, somebody...
Things only escalated further as the daughter walked out of the court at the thought of another man possibly being her father. She had only known one dad, and he had been there for her whole life.
Whoever Tommy was.
I never doubted the fact that he was my father because he's always been there no matter what. That's not my father. No,
There's a possibility I could be your father.
So you do admit that you had a sexual relationship with Mr. Farmer around the time...
Mrs. Jacobs admits she had been involved with Mr. Farmer's at the time she had conceived one of her kids, and so that made him potentially a father to only one of her kids. Mr. Jacobs was not aware of a possible third-party claim to his kids.
Not having a sexual relationship with him during the time Hector was only be Miss Razor's father. Yes. Established that you all refer to each other possibly as brother and sister like play brother. You're not related biologically. You're not real sisters and brothers.
I didn't know who he was. I didn't know he existed.
You never knew he existed? You never knew he existed?
In a shocking turn of events, the court results revealed that Mr. Jacobs was not one of the kids' fathers, but it wasn't the child they were suspecting. Feelings are at an all-time high as a very disappointed and shaken Ms. Razor leaves the courtroom, and more discoveries are made in Judge Lauren's chambers.
Mr. Farmer.
Yes.
You are not.
Yes!
Her father.
Oh, my God! Oh!
In the case, Mr. Jacobs, you are not Hector's father.
Oh! Let me get my kids, sir. Let me get my children.
She is scandalous!
Getting caught in a love triangle didn't only happen in the movies, as Ms. Harris was right smack in the middle of a huge showdown between her boyfriend Mr. Murray and her ex-boyfriend Mr. Donaldson.
Men in the running for this same 18-month-old baby.
Ms. Harris, you have been caught in a love triangle. There are two men in court today, your current boyfriend, the plaintiff, Mr. Murray, and the defendant, your ex-boyfriend, Mr. Donaldson.
Love triangles were definitely always unforgettable in court, as they were always very dramatic and intense, and most certainly the judge knew she was in for a show. Mr. Donaldson had told a very pregnant Ms. Harris that he likes another girl. He definitely was not kidding, as he had gone out of his way to ensure he wasn't there when it mattered.
They are both in court today to prove paternity. Tell me about your relationship with Mr. Donaldson.
From my understanding, we was dating. But then when I got pregnant, he told me he had feelings for another girl. He told me that he didn't want to be with me. So I was basically alone during my pregnancy. He came to the hospital with his mom when I had her.
So wait, you're dating Mr. Donaldson, you're in a relationship.
Mr. Murray's mom was in court, and she revealed some very surprising facts about the case. One thing was for certain, they had accepted that Mr. Donaldson was the father of the baby until another man stepped in, and things became very awkward.
You know about this pregnancy, ma'am?
I did not find out about it until she was about 5 months, maybe.
You never knew your son was possibly the father of this child?
When he told me about it, I accepted that he was, because that's what Chastity stated, that he was the dad.
Everything had come crashing when an impromptu visit from Mr. Murray's family member had revealed the presence of another man in Ms. Harris's life. To thicken the plot, Mr. Murray had received a message from someone who may or may not be Mr. Donaldson claimed paternity of the child.
You start having doubts that Anaya is your grandchild.
The thing that really changed my mind is when my mother went to pick the baby up and saw Fred.
Oh, so Mr. Murray, why do you believe you could be the biological father of this child?
One day I was on Facebook and I got a message from Jalen, and he told me that the baby could possibly be mine.
Mr. Donaldson's amnesia on whether he had sent a particular message or not definitely made things even more awkward in court. Even the judge was confused about the order of things, so the truth had to come even faster than before to smooth things out.
I don't recall.
And wait, you just saw a message on your account. And what did you say when you got that?
I said, are you sure?
Let me try to understand all this. Mr. Murray, what do you remember? She was in a relationship with Mr. Donaldson at the time, but you all ended up having a sexual encounter during that time?
Yes.
The truth came, and it was a little too much for us all. Especially for Ms. Harris, simply couldn't keep it together as she lost every iota of composure and ran out the courtroom asking for the cameras to be put away.
In the case of Murray versus Gerald Donaldson, Mr. Gerald Donaldson, you are not the father. Mr. Murray, you are not the father.
I can't sit here no more.
Ms. Harris?
I don't want to be on the camera no more.
There was the age-long dilemma of being stuck between the rock and the hard place. Mr. Hughes was stuck between his mom and his former girlfriend. Apart from paternity concerns, she was suing for defamation, asking for quite the sum for damages as a result of certain offensive posts made on social media.
Mr. Hughes, you say you're stuck between your mother and your ex-girlfriend. You're suing Miss Jackson for $1,000. She posted comments on social media, "Your family are deadbeats."
Ms. Jackson believed Mr. Hughes' mom was actively sowing dangerous seeds in her son's hearts concerning who is the father of the child. Ms. McBirth only has some shocking alliteration of adjectives to describe Ms. Jackson in the meanest way possible. The reason why she really believed her son wasn't the father. She had evidence to prove her claims.
McBirth has been poisoning her son, convincing him he's not the biological father.
This woman is trouble. Trash, trouble, and trifling. That's what she is. Nothing like my son or any member of my family.
Piece of evidence, Jerome, may I see that, please? A photo of your son and the child.
There's no way that could be my grandchild or my son's baby.
Ms. McBirth's comments on Ms. Jackson's son's appearance, which she had hinged the basis of her evidence, got quite nasty with horrible racial undertones by all indications. This was only the beginning with Ms. McBirth.
I have no idea, to be honest.
Because it's all the white. Everything I see got powder puff on it. I don't see no chocolate nowhere, okay?
How long have you been in a relationship?
15, 18 months.
And was he the only person you were intimate with during that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Jackson had been dating Ms. McBirth's son for quite a while and maintained her faithfulness to the relationship. However, there was another family member who had even more vitriol for Ms. Jackson, and that was Mr. Hughes' sister. She hated Ms. Jackson's guts and had only vile things to say. Was there any truth to what the mother and daughter had to say about Ms. Jackson?
No chocolate nowhere, okay?
How long have you been in a relationship?
15, 18 months.
And was he the only person you were intimate with during that time?
Yes, ma'am.
She lying.
Yes, ma'am.
This DNA right here, you are a vampire, you are just a fly-by-night. All she basically was for him was a snack cake on the side of his meal.
The child's skin color seemed to be the recurring reason for doubt, or in Ms. McBirth's case, absolute certainty the child couldn't possibly be hers. The sister drops a bomb in court, and the mother abandons all decorum and breaks out into the most nasty song to taunt Ms. Jackson.
A newborn. I kind of glanced over there and I seen this little white baby. I knew it wasn't mine.
Our children come in all colors.
She told me he was
white.
When I first met the girl, she said, "Hey, this is my brother's baby." She said, "Yes, I think." She was like, "Oh, okay." She was all for it. At that time frame, she was all for it, the DNA test.
It was time to get Mr. Hughes' side of the story, and it turned out that his dad was a complete white man, and that is why he had believed in the possibility that the child was his. His sister says the nastiest thing in response to his claims, and even the judge is visibly taken aback.
You believe you are Elijah's father.
I just gave him the benefit of the doubt because I'm biracial. My father's white.
That child is not my son's, okay?
My father's a brown-haired, blue-eyed dude, so.
She gonna freak him after this.
So now, wait a minute, you're accusing your
My
brother.
He just told us that. It wasn't his baby, so how
When did he tell you this?
That little boy got a bridge.
We're looking at the bridge of the nose.
Right.
They look alike. His youngest two, his youngest daughter and his son.
More bickering and even more nasty words are aimed at Ms. Jackson's character. It was time to address the defamation claims amidst all of the chaos, and the results are quite underwhelming. It was time to get answers on the most important question in court that day.
It was about a month ago, and I heard her tell another guy, Cash, come on with daddy.
I've heard him call other dudes daddy, though. She makes it hard on herself, basically, because she throws a lot of doubts in the situation.
And my son sees like a tall, light-skinned guy with a hat on. He's like, Daddy.
That man was black as my mom, you liar.
I don't have proof of the false statements, and for that reason, I have to dismiss your claim.
The paternity test results were clearly more than the very obnoxious mother and daughter bargained for, which caused a very loud rejection of the court's professionally obtained results. The mother is so upset she starts to trash up the courtroom as she throws a really huge tantrum because of the DNA test results. This mother had lost her shit in court.
Mr. Hughes, you are Elijah's father.
That's a lie! That's a lie! That's a lie! You a lying trick. What did you do? I'm through. I know that's a damn lie. I know that's a damn lie. I'm sick of it. Somebody fix it.
In this case, a mother and daughter duo are in court on behalf of their dead son and brother to deny the paternity of a 2-year baby he allegedly fathered before he passed.
After your son, Nafi, was killed, the defendant claimed she was pregnant with his baby. And you don't believe Nafi is her father.
We were going out, and Miss Manning called her, told her that she was possibly pregnant, and then I contacted Miss Manning.
Having to find out in the most non-reassuring way that her son had fathered, a kid may have given the mother a completely bad impression of the whole situation. She had lost her son to violence, and their lives had changed forever.
We were going out, and Miss Manning called her, told her that she was possibly pregnant, and then I contacted Miss Manning. I've seen Miss Manning in the past, so I wanted to know, being that my son wasn't here.
However, Ms. Manning was hurt that they didn't come to her with their doubts. Ms. Manning goes down memory lane on the way she communicated her pregnancy to the other 2 women and their nonchalant reaction to the news. Nevertheless, the mother was active in the baby's life, but things get even messier when the deceased man's girlfriend is brought to testify.
I felt as though they should have came to me if they had any doubts.
Miss Manning, how soon after this tragic event did you find out you were pregnant?
I was 6 weeks pregnant when I was in Job Corps. I called Mrs. Smith to let her know. The response I had got was, oh, well, Mr. Caesar is pregnant as well. And my response was, oh, okay.
Mrs. Caesar was another woman he was dating?
The boy's mother discusses her woes dealing with both of her son's baby mothers and her struggles with doubt. She had, however, tried to ensure that the children from both women had come to know of each other and learned to coexist. All she wanted was the truth as her emotions overwhelmed her.
You were living with her brother, and you were in a relationship.
Yeah, we lived together for at least a year. First thing I called was Mrs. Smith to ask her, did she know? Seen the girl, but she didn't know that they had that type of a relationship.
I've made sure from the birth of both girls that they knew each other, because it helped in my healing process.
In a shocking plot twist, the DNA test results performed by the court reveal a devastating news, and the plaintiff were clearly affected by the results. But Ms. Manning's reaction to the results were callous, and yet so dramatic as she even wanted to leave the court.
Ms. Smith is not related.
Can I leave?
Just take a deep breath. I know how desperately you were hoping this was a piece of your son.
I'm the one that told her that.
You feel like you opened up, but you understand you had to tell her.